My name is Thomas Lovehart, and I'm running for House District 71 in Utah against the Republican incumbent Rex Ship. And I want to take some time to talk about Citizens United. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's one of the most consequential and damaging Supreme Court rulings ever handed down. It effectively equated a corporation's right to spend money in elections as their right to free speech. In other words, the Supreme Court decided it was the constitutional right of every billionaire to buy our elections. And this opened the floodgates to billions and billions of dollars of dark money from corporations and super PACs into our elections. And since that 2010 Supreme Court ruling, we've been forced to watch helplessly as corporations and billionaires have essentially infiltrated, subverted, and totally subjugated our democracy. In both parties, it's hard to find a politician who has not taken corporate PAC money. There are a few of them, and I thank them for the work that they do, but it's becoming increasingly rare. Now, despite wide outcry across the nation, the only way to reverse a Supreme Court ruling is if the Supreme Court reverses its own ruling in a future ruling, or if a majority of the states hold a convention and actually pass a constitutional amendment. And it's hard to believe that will ever happen when these are the very same politicians that have now been bought by these corporations. And it's very hard to believe that the same politicians that have been bought by these corporations will ever pass a constitutional amendment. So while a constitutional amendment remains the ultimate goal and should serve as a litmus test for any politician in Washington, if they do not support one, get them the hell out of there. We cannot afford to wait for that to happen. And recently, a groundbreaking legal theory out of Maryland says that we may not have to. This legal theory is called the corporate power reset, and it doesn't seek to challenge the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United. Rather, it seeks to bypass it altogether by taking the battlefield from the arena of free speech to the arena of corporate law. The logic is pretty simple. These Maryland legislators are arguing that a corporation is not a person with inherent rights, but rather an entity that is created entirely by state law. Because the state grants the charter that allows corporations to incorporate and exist, the state also retains the absolute authority to define and limit what those powers are. By amending the state corporate code, these Maryland politicians can clarify that the power to spend money in elections is not a power that corporations have. This ends the free speech debate entirely. If a corporation is not granted the power to spend, it's irrelevant whether or not it claims the right to do so. And this should make all the states' rights proponents excited because it is the ultimate exercise of the 10th Amendment. Any powers that are not explicitly granted to the federal government in the Constitution are retained by the states and the people. Right now, politicians in Maryland are trying to establish this law, and it'll go through the courts. I'm sure it'll be challenged. But Utah should be the next state to amend its corporate charter to restrict corporations' ability to spend in our elections. Utah could be the first red state to join the charge to say that our elections are not for sale. They belong to the people, not the highest bidder.